Hello, welcome to Game Dev London. I'm Chris Payne, and with me is Ed Bennett. We're going to be chatting about the acquisition of WETA Digital by Unity. This is a really interesting move. I wanted to talk to Ed about it because it's pretty clear that Unity have done this to try to bring themselves closer into the whole virtual production industry, which is clearly the future of filmmaking. And Ed works in that field. So, Ed, what are your thoughts on this acquisition?
Um, yeah, I agree. I think it's almost like playing catch up for Unity because over COVID and over the last thing triggered by sort of the Mandalorian, um, so much of like the filmmaking and sort of like TV industry and stuff like that is heading down the virtual production route, and at the moment everyone uses Unreal, which is great for me as I'm vastly in bed with Unreal with Epic at the moment, but this seems to me to be Unity playing catch up. They are so much of the stuff that they've got here is aimed at that sort of area of stuff, and combined with that as well. There are so many actual films and stuff that are actually coming out. Like a lot of Marvel stuff is coming out on using you through this studio using this technology. That if you can integrate that heavily with your tool, then you're going to be able to grab market share. It's kind of like the Wild West out there with TV. It's like people are training everyone up as fast as they can. We're trying to steal stuff from the gaming industry so we can get as many coders across. And everything is trying to adapt to this virtual production, like real time sort of. They talk about it as doing post production on the day, so everything is filmed in these great big LED walls, and it's all in real time, which requires game engines because the game industry has been building the tech for real time stuff for decades now, and just now everyone in the film industry is considering this for everything. So Unity, they predict it's going to be everyone's predicting between 5 and 10 billion pound industry a year this is going to turn into. So it's crazy. And Unreal, we're lucky. I don't know what to say, lucky or smart, but they've been prepping for this for a while, especially with a bunch of the Unreal 5 things.
Yeah.
And Unity just paid a large sum to be contenders again, I think. How much did they pay? What was it?
I think it was 1.6 billion.
1.6 billion, which I personally think is a good
I'm just
purchase.
fact checking myself. Oh well, I'll check that while we chat. But yeah, it's a substantial sum of money, and because I remember the figure vaguely, because it definitely has made Peter Jackson a billionaire now.
Right.
But what's interesting is the way that it's split. So I know that you've got a list of some of the tools that WETA Digital have created, which will now belong to Unity. But just as a high level overview, what I thought was interesting is that the production studio, the visual effects production studio, WETA FX, remains owned by Peter Jackson. WETA Digital is the team of 275 staff that produces the back end pipeline that drives what the creative team at WETA FX are making. So they're basically buying the back end pipeline off of WETA. Now, according to what I've read, this is something that WETA were considering commercializing their back end pipeline anyway, and farming that out. And by selling it to Unity is basically a cheaper, well, a much more affordable way of making it sort of available to more people. So, did you want to have a quick chat about the tools that WETA Digital have created that Unity now own? Because this is interesting, because these are visual effects tools. So these are designed to be offline, so they're focused on quality over speed, unlike most video game technologies.
Yeah. Well,
So, did you want to run us
that's
through those?
we can have a look through them. I mean, I suppose what the interesting thing is. I mean, you mentioned that they've already started to try and sell them, but they had, or they do have a big deal with Houdini.
Okay.
I've forgotten the name. I've forgotten the name of the company, but they'd already kind of been working towards integrating a lot of these tools with Houdini to come out the end, I think, of next year. And so, as you're saying here, yes, their pipeline isn't geared for real time, and that's the big difference, because the challenge is getting everything up on screen and getting it running at real time, because the whole reason everything is moving over to game engines is so that you can capture the effects and the background and everything in camera. So you can just film from the camera, and then the effects come up on the back wall, and you can't tell the difference. And I've seen some amazing stuff, absolutely brilliant stuff, especially as the LED walls get better. But that requires real time, and that's where I think there are issues. Now, the way that Houdini does it is a lot of it is you kind of like light baking. You sort of bake out the effects, and you bake out the models and stuff like that. So it's kind of using a host pipeline, but doing all the processing and making it something really, really optimized so that it fits into a game engine.
Yeah, my understanding is that because I'm aware that like Houdini is used in the games industry for things that would be too expensive to simulate in real time. So, for example, if you have like an exploding building that needs to collapse, and with monsters fighting over it and stuff like that, if it's part of a canned sequence that is going on in the background of gameplay, or the gameplay passes in and out of it, then you want all of the background expensive like falling debris and stuff to be pre-computed in Houdini. So all of the simulation is run offline, and then it is output so that the game engine can just take what Houdini delivers, which is, as you say, a highly optimized data set of these are where all the bricks should be on this particular frame, and here's where the fluid surface should be splashing on this frame, and you literally just sort of like having almost like blend shapes for an entire like building and simulation, just fed into the game engine. So it completely eliminates all of the simulation side of things, and Houdini is geared to good quality simulation and tools for allowing artists to control that simulation and get the sort of result that they want.
Yeah.
So
especially, as you mentioned, fluids. It does fluids better than I've seen anything do. I mean, it's beautiful, the stuff that Houdini produces, but it's spot on. It is. But this is where I do wonder how useful, because I mean, at what point? Well, as long as it works in real time on the back on a monitor, as long as you can get it, then we're good to go. What's interesting is that, so I mean, there may be lots of other different reasons why this is used. I mean, I think the interesting thing is we've got two different rendering engines here. Now, So we got what is it, Menka and Gazebo. Uh,
Yeah. Now, my reading of that is that Manuka is the high quality render engine for the final bake of things. Whereas Gazebo is the interactive renderer, which is what they use for previewing stuff. So it will be interesting to see if whether Unity can incorporate anything from Gazebo into their pipeline and vice versa. And you would certainly hope that like the engineers from both of those would compare notes, because they will obviously have very slightly different use cases. But there's going to be a certain amount of cross pollination between like the those technologies.
See, my guess is, yeah, well, I'm sure they can learn stuff from each other with them, but my guess is that they, well, the thing is they've got kind of a package deal, haven't they? So they bought everything. So it
Yeah.
is now there's going to be some bits they can use and some bits that they can't. My guess is their rendering pipeline, because it's baking stuff, is going to be so far off what Unity's rendering pipeline is at the moment that
Yeah.
for virtual production, I don't think it's going to be specifically useful. However, for because virtual production doesn't mean everything's going to be done in virtual production anymore. Well, there'll still probably be, I mean, there'll still probably be many baked out films and sort of and stuff. So there'll probably still be a whole load of that. But I doubt that either of those two are going to make much of a dent on how we see Unity or how it is used. I don't
Yeah.
think it's going to be like Nanite or sort of Lumen or any of the kind of, because they are built completely with that in mind, real
Yeah.
time in mind.
Well, that's something that I was gonna come to actually, because obviously, as well as the pipeline technologies, because also on this list are a bunch of systems for simulating hair, tissue, trees, gases and liquids, all sorts of stuff. But as well, WETA have an asset library, which is very similar. Makes immediately made me think of Unreal's acquisition of Megascans.
Yeah,
Now, if you've played with Megascans, I know you have. I have a little bit. They are huge assets. You can download a rock, and it's half a gigabyte for a rock, because it is photorealistic. It is incredibly detailed, and it is uh, it is production ready for movie use
yeah,
rather than for games use. Now, the interesting thing that I find different between the case of Unreal and Unity is that Unreal have Lumen and Nanite, their technologies that allow them to render movie quality assets at runtime and light movie quality assets at runtime. Now, Unity's rendering technology is still more traditional video game rendering process. So I can't see how Unity would be able to use WETA's assets in their game engine in the same way that Unreal can use Megascans, because they're built for a completely different use case.